Hello and welcome to Mark's NOTCAST. My name is Mark. This is not a podcast, hence it's a NOTCAST. And about once a week, a middle-aged man with not very much hair, quirky Michael Caine glasses, so retro, and a beard talks about records from his childhood and adolescence. So, hello there, as Obi-Wan Kenobi said in Star Wars, never Star Wars A New Hope. Because if there's one thing that the internet needs, it's more middle-aged men with opinions about various forms of electronic and rock music. There is a shocking dearth of that, as anybody can tell you. So today I'm going to talk about one of my favourite albums, or more correctly, one of my favourite bands and their first live album, Kraftwerk, 2005's Minimum Maximum, recorded on their 2004 world tour. But before I do that, just have to update you on a couple of things. Very short. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know I do these about once or twice a week. I haven't done them for a week and a half because there were some gigs that were ongoing, fair bit of travel, huge amount of work. And over the next few days, I have a few gigs going on and a fair bit of travel as well. So I might do one today, one tomorrow. And yesterday, 4th of August 2025, I filmed an amazing episode of this where I accidentally forgot to plug the microphone in like a complete twit and therefore recorded myself for about 50 minutes just mouthing along to that video, which had absolutely no sound. And so, instead of having an episode uploaded yesterday, I just did a fantastic rehearsal that nobody saw. I probably should take off these 3D glasses because I can't really see what I'm doing and it's giving me a bit of a headache. I'll explain the purpose for the 3D glasses as we get further into the episode, although I'm sure any of you that have worked out that Kraftwerk have a box set called 3D, the catalogue, can work out exactly why I'm wearing these 3D glasses, because I look awesome in them. One of my favourite t-shirts had a cat wearing 3D glasses on. Sadly, it got trodden on in a human tower at a gig by goth superstars, The Mission, and I ended up having a massive boot print on it and therefore could never wear that again. So, without much further ado, I also bring you up to speed with what I did at the weekend. I saw Underworld. And as we know, the synth duo is one of the finest configurations of all time. Think of the great synth duos that there are. Obviously, hang on, I've got it somewhere. Ralph and Florian, when Kraftwerk were a two-piece. Also, and in not any particular order, the beloved Depeche Mode, who are now a duo. 9 Inch Nails, they're a synth duo. Pet Shop Boys, Soft Cell, Yazoo, Kraftwerk. I've mentioned Kraftwerk already. OMD, they're a synth duo. The synth duo is one of the finest musical configurations of all time, including, of course, also Nights are Ebb. And therefore, I love stuff that goes bleepy bloopy. And then I'm going to be talking about the Kraftwerk live album starting around about now. So, hot on the heels of the release of 2003's Tour de France album, Tour de France soundtracks, which was to date the final Kraftwerk studio album, and therefore probably the final Kraftwerk studio album of all time. Kraftwerk decided that they were going to tour the world. Never the most busy or prolific of touring acts. They played live very infrequently between about 1981 and 2003. They did, I think, 4 shows in 1990. They did a short European tour in 1991. I think they did 3 shows in 1992, 4 shows in 1993, 3 shows in 1997, and I think a short tour in 1998, and some touring in 2002. Again, playing less than 10 shows on average some years. Kraftwerk were never a big touring band, but with Minimum Maximum, they decided that the time was right to go back out on the road, and they reconfigured and brought a new version of their studio out. So up until 1998, the band were playing the Kling Klang studio with analog synths and kits. It looked absolutely huge and enormous, and in fact you've got like a photograph of it on, I think, the back sleeve there of the Computer World CD with the robots playing it. By the time the band went out in 2002, they were working in a new configuration, the one which most people were used to for a long period of time, most obviously on the cover and video of Minimum Maximum, the synth laptop years. And this was powered by 4 Sony VO laptops running Cubase SX, 6 which were running video, and a whole bunch of soft synths. The configuration was a little odd, and I say odd because it was not what you'd consider. It more became, instead of a live gig, Kraftwerk gigs became almost an experience of a kind of like a rolling museum, a touring museum of modern music, a nostalgia for a future that never quite existed. So a look at one of your possible futures that never quite came to pass. And to lay out the band's kind of configuration here, I'll just quickly open the inside of the minimum maximum notebook set, which I'll get into more detail there. And the 4 members of the band there were obviously, quickly we go, Ralf Hutter, Henning Schmitz, Fritz Hilpert and Florian Schneider, running right to left. And the way that they built out the set and the video was that they had these 4 bits of kit, each of which had a specific role. Ralf was playing a full keyboard and vocals and melody lines. Henning had a mini keyboard, and he had an FX set and a mixing desk. He had a whole bunch of stuff on a screen that he could manipulate various sounds and noises. Fritz had a mini keyboard set, largely running rhythms as I understood it, as long as it's an FX set and a mixing desk that was there. And Florian worked on sound and textures, and speech synthesis, and colouring in the sound, making it less black and white, I think, as well as doing backing vocals on Autobahn. And the video was all looped up to sounds and triggers that were off there, since the arrangements didn't really change from gig to gig, although most of them were definitely played live, fully live, because there is a fascinating YouTube video of Kraftwerk fuck-ups on stage. You could then see the band playing, although of course these days the joke is, as soon as you've got anyone behind lectern, someone goes, worst Kraftwerk gig ever, and it's like, it's not really what it's all about, is it? The tour began, and I think they played something like 78 shows in 2004. It was heavily bootlegged as a tour, and I'm going to talk through the tour, the set list, and the live album before we get into what happened after that. And I think it's probably fair to say that the tour was probably the first time that Ralf really realised that the band could be a very commercially successful touring operation. There are a number of bootlegs that were released. Here's one of them, Kraftwerk at the Zepp in Tokyo on the 28th of February 2004. Here's the one on the 29th of February 2004. I played another 2 shows. The respective bootleg CDs come in slightly different shades, and again have slightly different pictures of members on the back, just to make it clear. But again, you look at that and you go, nope, the set list is exactly the same, night to night to night. And then also that I saw 2 shows on this tour. I saw the London Royal Festival Hall, captured here on this bootleg CD of the show, and also the London Brixton Academy 8 p.m. show. Last time I saw Florian perform live, and both of which were very interesting and in some ways very intense experiences. So when I saw Royal Festival Hall, for example, getting tickets was one heck of a fight. We managed to get 3 of us together up on the sides, and we got 1 seat down in the front section that was just separated out on its own, because it was like a row of 7, 14 and 7, and I got, like, number 7 there on its own, because everyone had friends and I don't have friends, so that made it easy to buy a single ticket. I was very cheeky. During the show, what I realised was there's nothing actually stopping me from standing at the front in the 6 feet or so between the gaps, so which is the distance from between here, where you are right now, and that back wall is about 6 feet. So I was about that far away from the band when they were playing. I went to the loo during my least favourite track on the album, Vitamin, and then walked down and just stood at the side next to Florian watching the band side on. And I wish I could have find my mobile phone and transfer those photos, because they were incredible. I was just there going, I'm watching Kraftwerk. I'm like 6 feet away from Florian watching Kraftwerk play London, and that was an amazing experience to have. But, and to be absolutely clear, the band were on phenomenal form. And over time, probably about 10-20 people went down the front and started to dance, and it was like having a private Kraftwerk show. So even though, like, when I first saw them in 1992, it was a very kind of vibrant, loud experience. I saw them at Leicester Polytechnic on the 18th of June, and the band played to about 400 people, and the audience was very, very busy. In 2004, we were all a little bit older. It was a show that was designed to be experienced with your eyes, not necessarily with your feet. And so it wasn't as bright, it wasn't as exciting. It was very good, but it wasn't as lively, I think. But what I did do for the Royal Festival Hall is I stood to the sides. I thought, all I need to do, and I'm not standing in anybody's way here, I'm not in anyone's eye line, is just experience the band up close, hear that gorgeously beautiful squelchy bass, that very pristine sound right in my ears, and just have a great show. And I had a great show. And over time, as I said, probably about 10-20 people came and joined me. And there was just this little section at the front just dancing and having an amazing time. And that was, one of the shows which was featured on the live album that was released. The other bootleg I have, and this is a great little set, if you get a chance to see it, is live at the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival 2004. This features the only variation to the set list that the band performed in that year, in so much as they played an 80-minute festival set, which means that their set was truncated. There was a different arrangement, Autobahn, a slightly shorter version of Music Non-Stop. The Robots was half the length that it normally is. And some of the songs were taken out of the set. So for example, and quickly looking at it for Coachella, it's missing... So they played a shorter version of Tour de France 2003. They didn't play, as far as I can tell, Chrono, Etape, Vitamin, Neon Lights, The Model, Home Computer, Pocket Calculator, Electrocardiogram, or Aerodynamique, instead focusing on 13 hits. And actually I should give this one a listen, because I haven't listened to it enough. But it's a great set of the band performing an 80-minute best of. If you can't get Minimum Maximum on vinyl, I think there's a version of this that's going around. Very much worth getting. But since Kraftwerk brought their own sound system to every show, the sound was absolutely immaculate, and the tour crisscrossed the world, for example. So again, I saw the Brixton Academy 8 p.m. show on the 20th of March 2004, the last time that I saw that lineup of the band. And that was worlds away from the Royal Festival Hall. The Royal Festival Hall was very much an art crowd, very much we're experiencing art, darling, the Gerstam Kunstwerk, or whatever it's called, which in German means total work of art. And, if I had a beard, I definitely would have stroked it. If it's interesting, that's making me think things and have feelings about and make connections. Brixton on a Saturday night was a very busy, lively rave crowd. It was a full-on put a donk on it kind of experience. Great show, really, really loved it. Just really, really, really enjoyed it. But it was the last time that I saw that lineup of the band, and I didn't see the band again until 2009 when they played the Manchester Velodrome in 2009, because they didn't play the UK mainland between March 2004 and July the 2nd, 2009. And the world had changed a lot in that time. One of the first changes that there had been is that the band released its first live album, Minimum Maximum, which was first available in an audio configuration in June 2005. Minimum Maximum is the only Kraftwerk album that is currently in print, or more correctly, since the 1974, that hasn't been reissued, remastered, or repackaged, unlike all the other albums. That said, this is one of the best live albums of all time. It's up there with James Brown and the Apollo. It's up there with Live After Death, Underworld's Everything, Everything, and that Bob Dylan album that nobody ever shuts up about. And it was released, like all Kraftwerk albums, or most Kraftwerk albums, in 2 editions. There was an international English language edition, and there was a German language edition, which I think was released in Germany and Austria. The German language edition is the version I have on CD here, and the English language edition is the version that I have on vinyl. And whilst I'm pointing out, if you are patient and persistent, you can get a good quality copy of this on vinyl for considerably less than most people charge. So I think the average price for this is quite substantial, and I paid about £150 less, because if you look very carefully on the box there, you can see that little dink there, which means that somehow it's worth taking £150 off the price. And taking £150 off the price, that's all right with me. I went with that. So let's go into minimum maximum and see what it is. It's a faithful representation of the 2004 set list. The vinyl edition, and I have to quickly check the catalogue number on here. This is, or it should be, the English language version of it. It comes in a flip top lid. There you go. Off comes the lid. On the inside of the lid is a detail from the CD booklet, which details where the band played in 2004, and a list of the various technicians and credits. So in the lineup, we've obviously got Ralf Hutter, we've got Florian Schneider, we've got Henning Schmitz, who first started working with the band in, I think 1978, around about the time of Man Machine, as an engineer, and then also on, I think, Electric Cafe, and then joined the band as a touring member in 1991. And Fritz Hilpert, who did some mixing work on Electric Cafe, and then also kind of was promoted into a band member in 1987 when Wolfgang Flür left. So we've got that version of the band. So we've got this in here. We've got 4 vinyl discs. Everybody loves vinyl, baby. In fact, I was at a Nine Inch Nails gig the other day and I actually heard a guy say, I've got that on vinyl, to a woman, and I don't know if that was necessarily very interesting for him or for her, actually, come to think of it. So there we have this version of it. Now I'm going to go and check the catalogue number, because that will tell me what version of the album this actually is. And looking at it, it appears to be, this is the German language edition of the album inside an English outer box. Well, that's unusual, isn't it? But there you are. And by the way, if you're the kind of person that has loads of generic black inner sleeves, unfortunately, you're going to have to keep these ones because they have the catalogue numbers on the back. If that's the kind of record collector scum that you are, and I'm afraid to say, cool, baby, that's really me. So we've got, the set is broken down into various parts, and kind of parceled out there. Disc 2. Oh, actually, I put these in the wrong order. Well, that's annoying, isn't it? Right, my inner train spotter isn't going to deal with that at all. I'm just going to have to put these back in, and each one of them. By the way, if you are a vinyl snob, the minimum maximum box is a fabulous pressing, very quiet, flat. Sound is gorgeous, really good. But of course, Kraftwerk have some of the best record players on the planet, as you will undoubtedly find out when we talk about the reissue shortly. And there's a photograph of the band during, I think that's electrocardiogram, I think, but it could be aerodynamic, of Ralf, Henning, Fritz and Florian. Put the box in there. What's in the box? We need to talk about that film at some point, and then put that over to one side there. And then we also had the CD edition of the album. And this is the German language version of it, as opposed to this, which at least the box is the English language version of it. And the versions that are chosen for the German and the English versions have a substantially different number of performances. So, for example, on the English language edition, the model is recorded in Brixton at a gig I was at. In the German version, it was recorded in Berlin. Radioactivity was recorded at Warsaw in the English version, and on the German version it was recorded at Tallinn in Estonia. Trans-Europe Express was recorded in Budapest. On the English version, the German version was recorded in Riga. Computer World was recorded in Moscow. In the German version it was recorded in Riga. Pocket Calculator was recorded in Moscow in the English version, and the German version in Berlin. And the Robots was recorded in Moscow on the English version and in Berlin in the German version. And those are the only songs where there is differing audio. Now, if you wanted to get really, really deep into it, you could buy also the DVD edition of Minimum Maximum. which again is issued in two configurations, German and English. The only difference is the backdrops that you've got. So the shots of, for example, language like Computer Welt, Trans-Europa Express, the lyrics to the robots. Pretty much everything else is identical visually, but the performances are different. And obviously, whether you do have shots of Ralf singing, it has to be synced up to the German language edition of it. So that is the German version of Minimum Maximum. Other Kraftwerk albums that are available in multilingual editions include, well, certainly Trans-Europe Express, The Man Machine, Computer World, Electric Cafe, and The Mix. So about half of the band's discography is available in alternate language editions. That said, from a sonic perspective, I prefer the German editions because phonetically they're truer to the original language in which the songs were written. The English versions are often a translation, but that doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the English language version has a variance or a playfulness in it that perhaps in the German version is perhaps more understated. And listening to this today, by the way, what I realise is first and foremost is the construction of the set list is designed to take you on a narrative journey, not dissimilar, in fact, to a U2 show. It opens with The Man Machine, a statement of intent from the band, the title track from, I think, their 7th album. I think it's 7th, could be 8th album, actually. And again, that's very clearly laying out that it's the Man Machine, a mix of man and machine inside the band. The second track is Planet of Visions, which is a reworked version of the Expo 2000 jingle, including in its second part a live performance of what I think is the Underground Resistance remix of the track. But again, the lyric in that, the key lyric is man, nature, technology, the place where man and nature and technology meet and become somehow a multiplier of each other and more than the sum of the parts. The third track is Tour de France, which takes up the rest of side one, apart from Vitamin, and Tour de France being the 1983 version. There kind of implies that, again, we're looking at the combination of man and technology, the man and machine coming together as one. And basically side one is all around how man has evolved and how, when you think about the thing that made the difference between man and animals, it's really about the use of implements and tools. And it's about, obviously those opposable thumbs there, people, and putting those together. And side one very clearly lays out that is where Kraftwerk are interested in, the potential of mankind. The second part of, side two is Tour de France, Autobahn, the model, and neon lights. And what we're looking at actually is we're starting to get a near chronological journey through the band's body of work once you finish Tour de France. So Autobahn comes up, and then it's the model and neon lights. The model recorded at Brixton, which again I was at. Neon lights recorded at the Royal Festival Hall, which I was definitely at that. And each one of these is chosen for a thematic correctness, if that makes sense. So Tour de France, the 1983 track, is recorded at Paris, which is where the Tour de France either starts or ends. I never remember which one of the two counts, or possibly both. Autobahn at the Berlin Tempodrome, because Autobahn itself was designed to soundtrack the journey between Dusseldorf and Berlin on the Autobahn, and it's in a 9-minute version there. The model recorded at Brixton Academy or Berlin. Could have been any performance of the model, really. I guess Brixton was chosen because of maybe supermodels, I guess. And Neon Lights was recorded at London's Royal Festival Hall, which is on the South Bank. And the South Bank is a place where you can sit. And actually, one of my favourite places in the world is the balcony at the South Bank in London on the 4th floor, which is where the bar is. And then you can just stand there and you can look out over the whole panorama of London. You look out over there and you're looking at, Battersea Power Station and the skyscrapers. And then you can scroll across. You can just look across and you can see the Houses of Parliament, Charing Cross. And then a bit further over, you get St. Paul's, you get the belly of the beast itself, the City of London, and you can then look over to Canary Wharf, the financial hub of Britain. And you kind of go, that's the neon lights, isn't it? The shimmering neon lights that kind of tell you about where mankind has created an alternate reality based upon economy and electricity. Radioactivity is recorded in Warsaw or Tallinn, depending on your point of view. But again, thematically, it then goes from neon lights to bright lights to radioactivity as the light of an explosion. And then Trans-Europe Express, which again shows a kind of where man, nature and technology intersect. Autobahn, the car, Tour de France, the bike. The model is around the neon lights, around the communication of lights and entertainment and imagery. Radioactivity is harnessing power itself. Trans-Europe Express is another form of transportation. So you've got planes. Well, actually, no, you haven't got planes, but you've definitely got trains, automobiles, bikes, trains and automobiles, I guess. And then you go on to side 7, good Lord. And again, this is chronological. You have numbers, computer world, home computer, pocket calculator, and Dentaku, the Japanese language version, an alternate arrangement of pocket calculator. And those, again, convey an idea of the ways in which mankind has harnessed the possibilities of nature in order to further our existences. One could argue, as Douglas Adams had it, that mankind believes itself to be superior to the animals because of the home computer and the internet and nuclear weapons, and dolphins believe they're superior to mankind for exactly the same reasons. It's up to us as to which one is true. Because obviously the gap between truth and facts is truth is an interpretation of factual events, and facts are just the facts, man, as Dragnet had it. You then go into numbers, computer world, home computer, pocket calculator, Dentaku, a pretty damn stunning 5-song run. And by the way, that features at least one version of, I think, every song from Computer World. Because Computer World, hello, I'm Computer World, Kraftwerk's 9th album, or 10th album, I forget which, only really has a handful of tracks on. It's got Computer World, Pocket Calculator, Numbers. Computer Love isn't on here, but aside from that, everything else from the album is represented on there. And then we've got the Robots from 1978, a song that kind of indicates that the interface between man and machine, but also Robotnik in Russian, I think, stands for or means slave, and so therefore you're starting to look at some very sly kind of commentary about the nature of roboticness itself. And then Electrocardiogram and Aerodynamique, obviously about the intersection between man and machine. Hutter, bike, for example, like Brundlefly from The Fly, where the two, there isn't really any substantial kind of difference between the two. And the final track on the album is Music Non-Stop. And Music Non-Stop is, I was listening to that earlier, and what I think it's fair to say is that when Ralph had his bike accident in 1983, effectively that switched off his creativity. Kraftwerk's productivity since 1983 has been minimal, to say the least. There was one studio album released in 1986, and there was another studio album of new material released in 2003. That's 22 years ago now. And after that, Kraftwerk haven't released a single note of newly recorded studio material. You could argue that in 2017, they released a massive amount of new recordings, and they did, but not one of them was a new, previously unheard composition. As I've said, the German language version is available on CD. All German language versions of it are, I'm afraid to say, using this ridiculous bullshit copy control protection here, which allows you to play an MP3 version of it in your computer, but not the actual music. I'm like, really? What wank? There was a deluxe edition of Minimum Maximum that was released a number of weeks after the DVD came out. The DVD came out, by the way, several months after the CD and the LP. And then following that came this one, The Notebook, based upon basically the packaging for your standard laptop notebook that was out in 2005. And it's hard to believe this album is 20 years ago. So let's open the notebook and see what's in there. Basically, nice packaging. Unfortunately, and this makes my teeth itch, this is not the same way up as that on the inside. I have to turn that around. I really wish it wasn't the case, because it makes you feel that this is in fact upside down and round and round. It's a little strange, but there you go. And you've got a nice kind of lenticular kind of image of the four from the Expo 2000 film. You also get, by the way, this lovely sheet of paper that has Kraftwerk and minimum maximum printed on it, ideal for framing or just leaving in your record. And then you get the first official Kraftwerk printed product since the tour program, which is here now, is basically a reproduction of a German keyboard there. So if you look at that and go, that's not where U sits, that's not where Z sits or anything like that. Well, I'm afraid to say German keyboards are different. So there. But yeah, that's a German keyboard. And then you also get on here a CD and DVD edition. My version is the English language CD of minimum maximum. And then also the English language version there of the DVD, which is upside down and it's in unique imagery. So again, it shows you where they were recorded. And by the way, if you look at the DVD, there are some crowd shots from Brixton Academy during radio activity. I can see my lovely self in that crowd shot from the days when I had a full head of hair quite a long time ago. Now, indeed. Let's go into the book. This book effectively represents high quality visual images of the band on the tour, detailing the show shot by shot. So there's the the four members of the band, the Man Machine, Expo 2000, the cover of Vitamin, therefore also looking like I think New Order's Fine Time, RBCD there, Vitamin, showing the pills dissolving in the days when you had an aspirin and you had to put it in the water and you'd see it disappointing into the water. Then Tour de France itself, Volkswagen, the people's car from Autobahn itself, seeing the album cover come to life in front of your eyes, surrounded by four taciturn Germans. Again, the Volkswagen there appearing on Autobahn, and some more photos. Then we've got, this is from the model, and that's neon lights. I cannot guarantee that these photographs, by the way, are taken from the same shows as listed on the recordings. Radioactivity there, then again another shot of the chemical reaction as uranium or plutonium-239 kicks off and causes, as Arnold Schwarzenegger says in Commando, all fucking hell breaks loose. Then there's Trans-Europe Express, the graphic and image icon, which then later becomes the cover of the Trans-Europe Express album. Some more photos from Trans-Europe Express. Hang on a moment. That's the introduction to Numbers there from San Francisco. San Francisco, by the way, is chosen for Numbers because that's the home of Silicon Valley, and the band clearly felt that was the correct place to have it. Clearly it's thematically linked, some of these locations, computer world. And again, if you look at this is kind of like a heavily pixelated, almost childlike version of what the future might look like. And what people don't realise is actually how funny and how silly and how understated Kraftwerk are. There's a lovely playful sense of humour, a childish naivety actually, the endless possibilities of the future that is included in their work, including, for example, of course, Pocket Calculator. Then we've got the robots, more shots from them coming up, the Expo 2000 imagery, which is also used, I think, for electrocardiogram, because there isn't really anything to represent the band. And then finally, music non-stop. The four members of the band there represented with the four wireframe images. Then we have some photographs of the mannequins of themselves, the robots. These are taken from photos at the Turin vehicle, not museum, but one of the car factories. And the corporate headquarters is featured in the Italian Job, which means in the Italian Job, there is a section where the stolen minis in red, white and blue, because of course they are, fly onto a roof that has a racetrack built on it. It's the racetrack that's here in Turin, the corporate headquarters of one of the Italian vehicle companies, which, by the way, is situated next to a shopping centre. So when I went to a shopping centre in Turin, without realising, I suddenly looked up and went, I'm in one of the things that's in the Italian Job. Yowza. These photos were taken in Paris in 2002 and largely used to represent the band for their 2009 tour. I remember this being the cover of the Manchester Velodrome programme, which we picked up. There's a not at all threatening photograph of the 4 robots there with hoods over their eyes. Reminds me a little bit of a Blair Witch Project. Maybe they're also, they can't see what's going on. And then again, that graphic there represents both the locations on the tour and the personnel that we used for it. A slightly amended version of that, a diet version of that, is used on the inside of Minimum Maximum. And there are the 4 wireframe graphic outfits, which the band now use at every show to represent almost like the absence of person and just the machine itself. And then a CGI kind of mock-up of what the stage might look at, along with some technical credits for various people. Included in here, I believe, is the name of a future member of Kraftwerk, Stefan Pafaf, which I've undoubtedly mispronounced that incorrectly, who's responsible for video projections and then became a member of the band later on. This here features a couple of words that are going to become noticeable. Layout, Johann Zambrisky. He then worked on the 2009 reissue campaign, and then it says there, Kraftwerk, Ralf Hutter and Florian Schneider. This was the end, I think, really, of Kraftwerk as a meaningful creative entity. What they did after this was effectively retrenchment. Entrenchment, not enlightenment, if you might want to think about it that way. A restatement of past glories, without necessarily thinking about what the future might look like. At this point, the band played some shows in 2005, played some more shows in 2006, the last one of which was in Zaragoza in Spain. And after that, Florian retired from live performance and officially left Kraftwerk on the 21st of November 2008. The reason being, as I understand it, and again I could be wrong, is Florian's dad died. Florian's dad was a major architect in Germany, and therefore there was an inheritance of a substantial amount of money, as I understand it, several million euros. And without a need, effectively, to work, Florian retired from live performance and then eventually withdrew from Kraftwerk completely and quietly. I also understand around 2008, Florian sold his half interest in Kraftwerk. So, and this you only know kind of by the process of logical deduction. In 2004, the band were preparing the release of the catalogue box set. Each of the 8 studio albums that were in their official canon, running from Autobahn through to Tour de France soundtracks in remastered form. A promotional box set was issued. There's a couple of hundred of these. I have one. These have unique and unavailable commercially unavailable masterings from the Kling Klang studio. In 2008, I think Fritz and Henning went back and remastered the material again from its original masters, and then for the first time the band issued their official catalogue body of work in a complete and unified whole in 2009. Now on this set, it will tell you somewhere that it's a Kling Klang Studio digital master 2004, and the dead giveaway there is, I think there's 2 names, especially on Minimum Maximum, which are Ralf and Florian. By the time 2009 comes around and you get the catalogue, it's only Ralf Hutter and the 2009 date. So this box set is pretty hefty and pretty nifty. I didn't see the need to get the 2009 version for reasons I will explain. But again, the covers are standardised, regularised photos of the band are taken off and replaced with iconographic imageries. This is the only one where I think there's a photograph of the band, and again it's highly stylised and turned into black and white compared to the colour of the original edition. Computer World there, again, these are digital avatars of Kraftwerk, representations of the band as opposed to actual photographs of them. And for the first time, the idea that the band had in 2004, which they later executed fully in 2009, was to be able to present the body of work in a way in which the band approved, so that the covers, the artworks, the imagery that had was all from the highest quality forms, that it wasn't kind of effectively kind of almost sequenced out. So I'll pull an example here. So these are two original versions of Computer World on CD. One German language, which is this one English language, which is this one. And I mean, you might think, okay, what's the big deal? Well, again, looking at the insides, because that's important, is again, you look at the discs and the way that they're presented differently. There's different text, different arrangements, similar but not the same fonts, different back covers. So, for example, Computer World, the American edition, has a much bigger barcode. It also has some explanatory text that tells you that in 1981, Computer World is a production tour de force, with blanketing sound effects, creating an environment compatible with the album's intended mirroring of a computer-pervaded society. Which Kraftwerk show, don't tell. That is a better way of describing that cover there. And again, this was about standardizing and regularizing the artwork so that the experience that you had, aside from the difference in international versions, was exactly the same. Even down to, for example, looking, the faces on this one are green, the faces on that one are yellow. Someone somewhere has made a decision to fuck with the symmetry and change the core part of it. That's what the catalogue was meant to do, whereas previously the band's catalogue on CD was effectively someone picking out the nearest available master and going, that'll do, and then mocking up what they thought the CD would look like. The catalogue in 2009 was an attempt by the band to make everything look, feel and act the same, and to sort out any niggling issues that they had around the availability of artwork. Autobahn has two different covers in its original release. For example, one featuring the photograph of the the painting of the motorway, the other one featuring the motorway symbol itself. The album Technopop, which was all called Electric Cafe upon release, but the band always wanted to call it Technopop, was removed and then called Technopop. Occasionally different edits of versions of the tracks were released in the 2009 catalogue, and the 2009 catalogue features two versions of Telephone Call as opposed to the 8-minute version that's on the original version of Electric Cafe. If you want to get the remastered version of the Telephone Call, the original LP recording, you can only get it on the 2004 box set here, because the 2008 version turns the single A and B sides, the Telephone Call and House Phone, to replace the original LP mix. This is a little beastie, a catalogue sampler featuring effectively Kraftwerk's greatest hits, reproductions of 7-inch edits of Autobahn, Radioactivity, Trans-Europe Express, The Man Machine, Computer World, Technopop itself, the robots from the mix, Tour de France, and the live recording of the Model, Minimum Maximum, because the Model is, of course, the band's #1 hit single. Which means that actually, if I was in charge of the catalogue, I would make a couple of changes. The changes that I would make is that I would introduce a couple of songs which are only otherwise available on vinyl or very rare CDs. So the first one I would include is this 7-inch single, Cahutek and Comet Melody, the missing link between Ralph and Florian on Autobahn. So this is material that appeared in retitled and re-recorded forms on the Autobahn album, but recorded at the tail end of the Ralph and Florian period. The band's first single didn't sell that many copies, never reissued, quite expensive. I paid €37 for it because it has a price sticker kind of that's been peeled off here and ripped the cover. The other alternative is paying somewhere around about £100 to get a copy without this on here. And frankly, I'd rather have the £70 than have that there if I had to face it. It also features, by the way, and this is a little bit of Florian's artwork there, is the Kling Klang Studio kind of logo there alongside a depiction of the notes that went into Comet Melody. I would have put I've put an extra CD in the catalogue, so I would have put Kraftwerk 1, 2 and Ralph and Florian in there as well, because they're legitimate parts of the band's body of work, although they don't necessarily want to represent that. I'd have put an extra CD in of non-album tracks that have not been reissued. So that would include this, it would include the 7-inch edit of Autobahn, which, by the way, has, as far as I can tell, was reissued in 2019 as a single-sided blue vinyl 7-inch with with a German magazine called Music Express, which became Kraftwerk's preferred way of releasing singles for a period of time, and then some alternate language recordings. If you want the French language version, by the way, of Showroom Dummies, entitled Les Mannequins, which is fantastic, the best way to get hold of it is this on a Canadian-only 12-inch. In Canada, they speak two languages, French and English, and therefore the English language version of Showroom Dummies is on one side of the 12-inch, and Les Mannequins, the French language version, is on the other side. The only place you can get Les Mannequins, I believe, officially on CD is the 1990 Capitol Records CD single of it. If you absolutely positively have to get it on vinyl, no need to track down a French language copy. Go for the Canadian 12-inch in this lovely sleeve, which I should point out, by the way, is probably not one that was chosen by the band. In 2009, after Florian had left and Stefan Pafaf had become a member of the group, at least for appearances' sakes, the band reissued the catalogue in the 8 CD box set, the catalogue, but also in these vinyl editions where some changes took place. These are the 2020 versions and repressings, coloured vinyl repressings of the 2009 masters on vinyl. Each copy contains an inner sleeve featuring alternate artwork. So, for example, that's the alternate cover for Autobahn, which is on a number of releases. That's the photo that, depending upon which version, either had Wolfgang Fleur's face put into it or not. This is the booklet, which features a number of photos and images which perhaps the band wanted to put in the original gatefold to kind of tell the story of the album. These are all taken from the film, which is only available in the background of the Minimum Maximum CD DVD. I do wish. Actually, no, it isn't, because there's a version of it now that is on the 2017 catalogue box set. But what you don't get with the catalogue box set is you don't get the original recordings of Kraftwerk, the original music. You get the new versions. So there's Autobahn. Here's Radioactivity, and again, as you can see, the sleeve has been changed to represent the radioactive danger sign. The original album cover is now on the insert. The colour of the vinyl on this one is yellow. The colour on Autobahn, unsurprisingly, is blue to go with the Autobahn logo. And again, there's a 16-page booklet featuring photographs, most of which are taken from the films, which are now currently used by the band as their live backdrops. Trans-Europe Express. This is again a German language version of it on coloured vinyl. The vinyl is clear, and it features, there's the original kind of cover painting photo, and here's an alternate cover, or more correctly, alternate set of photos of the band's mannequins there, which were used for the Showroom Dummies or Showsteffer Puppen. And again, clear vinyl, as clear as a colour. What I would say, this Trans-Europe Express and Space Lab, actually, on the Man Machine, the subsequent album, they do have some jumps on them. So Kraftwerk clearly have some very expensive, very, very lovely record players. Because, for example, Showroom Dummies and Hall of Mirrors on the 2009 version do jump if you have a cheap, unweighted player. Kraftwerk clearly have the most expensive vinyl decks that you can afford, not short of a bob or two. And so, for example, on this, the German language version of the Man Machine, again, different performances of the robots, the model, neon light, and the Man Machine itself on red vinyl, much like the limited edition red vinyl from 1978. But again, this jumps on Space Lab. So that's why I put a post-it note on there. It says skips on Space Lab, play black vinyl. That's the reminder which I have. But again, this features a redacted version of the cover, taking the band's faces off, but featuring photographs of the various representations, avatars and robots of the bands themselves. You're going to see a theme coming up here, which is not necessarily a surprise. Computer World, Again, coloured vinyl. I'm guessing this is a lovely shade of yellow, and it is. It's a different shade of yellow, because it's a clear yellow as opposed to a solid yellow. That again standardises and regularises the colours, makes sure that the sleeve is correct and accurate, and again features a booklet that features photos, various artworks, lyrics and similar. So really these are very good representations of the albums, and unless you absolutely positively have to track down the original versions, the 2020 coloured vinyl editions are lovely and sexy, and if you don't need those, then the versions of the catalogue are pretty good. Electric Cafe dispenses of the gatefold sleeve, instead reproducing the photo from the gatefold sleeve inside the 16-page booklet, and as I've said before, replaces the telephone call with the telephone call 7-inch mix and house phone. The mix ditches the gatefold, turns the band photos around a little. I think this is on white vinyl. Yes, it is. Again, has a skip or a kind of like a jump on the end of the robots, and again features repetitions of colour artwork. So there's Kraftwerk talking to each other on video phones. There's a lineup of Kraftwerk featuring the short-lived fourth member Fernando Abrantes, who played a total of 10 shows with the band in 1991. Later on, you will see the band represented actually with 3 robots, but taken 4 times to make it look like they were a different version of the band. Let me see if I can find a photo where Fritz Helpert's robot actually appears twice on the cover at slightly different angles, so it looks like there are 4 members of the group, but that's actually just a double of Fritz's robot. So there you have it. And then of course the band is a 3-piece, represented here on the back, with Ralph, Florian and Fritz there. I regard the mix as having Carl Bartos playing on it because he left during the preparation before the actual recording of the album itself. Lots of his work and ideas are on here, whether they're represented or not. The last version, and again no audio difference on this, there's only one edition of it, is the Tour de France album, again on coloured vinyl. These colours are red and blue to represent the red and blue of France itself. This was, in one way, the reissue catalogue. The remastering was a way in which I think Ralph was able to pick up and I think compensate for the fact that he'd now bought the controlling share of Kraftwerk from Florian. So he was effectively the only person on the boat. The band turned into effectively a nostalgia act. They haven't released a new note of music since then. They've toured frequently, and they've moved into a quite minimal form of merchandising, including this here, the 2011 3D book that was sold on tour, which presented printed copies of the photographs and imagery which was used throughout the set. What you'll see is all the live action material that was in the previous live backing films was removed and replaced with computer graphics. So there's no sign of any human being. These, by the way, work, but only if you put on these old-fashioned retro 3D glasses. And then in 2013, they also published this here, Robot Air, another hardback book sold as a new merch item alongside skateboards, tote bags and backpacks and other pieces of bullshit to get you to part with your money. This again features photographs of the robots in various exciting action poses, like standing in a straight line at a museum, or perhaps, let's work out what they're doing here, talking to each other on a video screen, pretending to operate themselves. There's another version, a variant of the photo which you will have seen on the mix, for example. What are they doing here? Well, again, this is the band as silhouettes walking on stage. But again, here's photos of the Ralph bot, Henning bot. There's Fritz bot. I guess the next one might be Falk bot, I'm guessing. No, Florian bot. There you go. There's Florian bot. And again, presenting Kraftwerk as another entity, a very discreet version. There's another action shot of them standing, I think, on the roof of a building. Here's an action photo of them standing near their coffins, and that includes Stefan there, I believe. I'm surprised I can even see that with these weird fucked up 3D glasses. And of course, again, repetition of the photos of the various band mannequins standing in Paris or Turin or wherever it is, a place that I don't live, for example. This was how Kraftwerk now exists. They now exist as a nostalgia act, a reminder of the future, that you could have been a techno Beatles playing frequently with a show that barely varies from one decade to the next. Some years you get the robots, some years you don't. A band member will leave, another one will be replaced, and there'll not be the slightest acknowledgement of the existence of the former member whatsoever. And Ralph, obviously, in the initial years after buying out Florian's share, had to generate a certain amount of income in order to pay for that, effectively using the band's future touring activity as collateral to afford taking control of the band, quite willingly, of course, as Florian retired. But then looking at it and going, well, if I need to pay Florian X million, I can then tour for, let's say, 40 shows at £100,000 a show, and then that pays for buying Florian out. And so, but then obviously you have to pay for the other costs of running the tour. So you do T-shirts, badges, posters, stickers and T-shirts, skateboards and books, all of which will help kind of turn Kraftwerk into what it now is, which is that it's a lucrative business designed at both reminding us of the future that could have been and managing the band's legacy activity as once pioneers, and reframing them retrospectively as a band that perhaps at the time in the 70s and 80s, Kraftwerk were just a band. And I mean that in no disrespect to them, but they were a band that did stuff, and they didn't sell huge amounts of copies. They didn't sell huge amounts of tickets. You know, they played to 300 people in Italy in 1990, and those shows weren't sold out. They played to 400 people in Norwich and Leicester. That would sell in a heartbeat 10 times over now. But that wasn't the case then. There are bands that like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin have become much, much bigger after the fact, because time has collapsed in the new era, streaming and so on. The fact that, you know, in the 1991, if you wanted to hear Kraftwerk, it was listened to on the radio, it was broadcast on television. That's how you heard the band. That's how you got into the band. And if you wanted to hear the band, you had to buy the records. Now that's all collapsed. Time is irrelevant. When something was recorded, whether it was 1957 or 2025, it's irrelevant. You type in the name of the song, it's there on your Spotify instantly. And so therefore the time is irrelevant. And the fact that Kraftwerk made hardly any records for the past 40 years is meaningless. They're a band that play shows. They're a band that still exists. And when I went to see them recently, the age range was very wide. When I went to see Underworld, the age went from probably about 6 to about 66, for example. When I saw Kraftwerk in 1992, the age range was probably about 17 to about 32. Now, when I saw them most recently, the age range was about 7 to about 77. And what that means is time has become a collapsible object, and thanks to the existence of the records, therefore anything can last forever. It's a lovely place to be, actually, is to exist outside of time and to no longer feel that if you didn't see a band at a certain date because you weren't born in a certain decade that you've missed out. You get the experience to see the band again now, and you get the experience to form new memories now. And it's really, really important to live in the moment, because obviously without knowing where you've come from, you don't know where you're going or how you've got there, but you also need to keep an eye on the future. And the Kraftwerk are the sound of a future that never happened, and what a glorious future it was. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, stay beautiful, be excellent to each other, and I will see you soon. And as Ralph Bot says, when he fronts Ralfwerk, thank you, auf Wiedersehen, good night.